Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. First of all, I would like to thank very much the Diabetes and Ramadan International Alliance for giving me the opportunity to be with you today. Special thanks goes to Professor Muhammad Hassanin for giving me the opportunity to present the evidence of insulin pump for which I have nothing to disclose. So we are approaching the month of Ramadan, and the first thing patients don't ask us, we need to fast. So please adjust the regimen. So we are all acquainted with the international guidelines from DAR about the adjustment of insulin pump therapy as well as multiple daily injections. So the first evidence came from the challenges of Ramadan fasting, either to maintain the blood sugar levels for the extended periods of fasting that might reach to 17 or 18 hours, as well as the risk of hypoglycemia, as well as adjustment of the meal schedules, the medication, as well as the physical activity and the proposed meal planning. So the risk of fasting for patients living with diabetes, either the hypoglycemia, especially in the fasting hours, the hyperglycemia post-iftar, dehydration due to prolonged fasting, as well as the very important thing, which is the increased glucose variability. So looking at the open pump, multiple publications, and you can see different publications coming from the adjustment of those pumps. However, again, intensifying the CGM, having this hypoglycemia in the fasting hours, and then look at the post-iftar hyperglycemia in the non-fasting hours. So this is the first evidence coming from the publication where we have adjusted the open loop setting, and you can see the difference between the standard pattern during the regular days without fasting and during Ramadan fasting. And then simply what is known as the step ladder approach, where you decrease the basal insulin during the fasting hours to avoid the hypoglycemia during the late fasting hours, versus increasing the basal rate during the iftar period, which partly due to the hyperglycemia, mitigating this iftar period in order to avoid this late hyperglycemia after the meal. So again, you can appreciate the difference between the basal rate before and during Ramadan. And this is the earlier version of insulin pump where you only had the low glucose suspend feature. So it would only suspend the basal insulin if you're already approached hypoglycemia, versus the other version, which is the predictive low glucose suspend. And here you can see the blue lines where the basal insulin is stopped before the occurrence of hypoglycemia. And then you can see here the abstract with the predictive low glucose insulin suspension, those patients having the earlier versions of insulin pumps where it's safe to suspend before the low feature of insulin pump, and they could achieve safe fasting. But moving only for the evidence of even the exercise, and I mean by exercise during Ramadan is the Taraweeh prayer, where you can simply do the temporary basal insulin, adjust the decrease in the basal insulin, as well as the duration of this decrease in the increment of basal insulin. But now when the pumps are getting smarter and smarter and moving from the open loop pump into the closed loop, and looking at the all integrated automated insulin delivery systems into the global guidelines. Now, I mean the American Diabetes Association, the European Association of the Study of Diabetes, as well as the International Society of Pediatric Diabetes. So all international and global guidelines have integrated the automated insulin delivery systems. So looking into this part and why look into this special circumstances. So now this circumstances, we're not just talking about exercise, pregnancy, lactation. But now we're talking about Ramadan fasting, which is another added special situation of using the automated insulin delivery system. So we have composed an expert of 13 adult and pediatric endocrinologists and diabetologists, and they are from 8 countries spread across 4 continents. And then we have looked into the different published guidelines. Leading authors for this were Professor Mohammed Sufyani and myself. But how did we get into the consensus and the journey into this new automated insulin delivery system into the intermittent fasting of Ramadan? So the purpose of this study was looking into the systematic literature review on the use of the advanced hyperclosed system on people living with type 1 diabetes during Ramadan intermittent fasting, as well as the recommendations from those experts about using this automated insulin delivery system during Ramadan fasting. So what we have done is that we have performed a systematic literature review using the PRISMA principle. And then we have looked into studies began in July 2023, looking at different research engines, either Medline or PubMed or IMBAS, looking into the full manuscripts within the English language. And then we have even looked at the manual research, looking into the references and refreshing the engine search to conduct the last step into whatever research we've got into the automated insulin delivery system and Ramadan fasting. So the clinical topics and the recommendation we're looking for either meta-analysis, systematic literature review, case reports, case series, whatever we've got into those reports, either during Ramadan or comparing pre-Ramadan, during and post-Ramadan. And then what we have done, and this is the PRISMA exclusion, you can see even at this table and precise into the recommendation guidelines that you can find it open access. You can look specifically on whatever publications. We have recorded all the inclusion and exclusion publications, and then we have ended into 6 record confirming the automated insulin delivery system during Ramadan fasting. So where is the evidence of automated insulin delivery system studies to look into this consensus systematic literature review? So the first worldwide study that was published in Egypt, where we have looked into 2 different settings of the automated insulin delivery system, either the intervention group or the control group. And I mean here by the control group, those who had the optimal setting with the blood glucose target of 100 milligram per deciliter at an active insulin time of 2 hours, versus the intervention group where we had relaxed setting or less aggressive setting with an active insulin time of 3 hours and looking at the glucose target of 3 hours with the 120 milligram. So if you're looking to 120 and 3 hours versus the 102 hours, this is intensive versus the relaxed setting. And if you're looking for that, those who had the optimal setting had the best time and range. And you can see that the time and range reached 82%. But a very important thing that this was not on the expense of time below range. And I mean here, this was not on the expense of occurrence of hypoglycemia. And again, you can see the same of time above range, above 180 and 125. And another important thing is safety, because again, safety comes first during Ramadan studies, where none had severe hypoglycemia or diabetic ketoacidosis. Furthermore, we're looking at the days of fasting, and you can see that even on those with the intensified or the optimal setting, they had to fast more than 28 days. And this means that only one person in each group had to break the fast in the late afternoon hours during the first week of Ramadan, and this was mild hypoglycemia. Another publication from the same group looking into the iftar period. And this is very important because we have a lot of argument about the hyperglycemia that occurs during iftar. So we have given those patients into the intervention group. We're giving a DDB4 tablet with the iftar meal versus the control group where they had only the insulin pump. And consequently, you can see that those who have received the DDB4 had a better time and range. And again, it's the same as the international recommended guidelines. And this was not on the expense of hypoglycemia. However, we had to adjust the insulin to carb ratio for those who have taken the DDB4 oral treatment to avoid the hypoglycemia. And then you can see again that the numbers of day fastened were the same in the intervention versus the control group, and no severe hypoglycemia or DKA were reported. But whether you have taken the DDB4 or not, again, you can see the beautiful greenery area, time and range reaching up to 79%, with the time below range and above range, again, according to the international consensus guidelines. Moving from Egypt to the Gulf region, where the leading author, Professor Mohammed Al-Sufyani, conducted in the Gulf region another glycemic control study looking again into the automated insulin delivery system. But now he was looking at the difference before, during, and after the month of Ramadan. And beautifully, you can see again the replicate of the recommended setting. So if you've got the glucose target of 100 milligram per deciliter, the active insulin time of 2 hours, again, you can see a more greenery area. We can see reaching 78% time and range. And this is, again, not on the expense of hypoglycemia and the time below range. Again, you can see if you're comparing before, during, and after Ramadan, you can see that the overall time and range is almost the same. But actually, if you're looking for the daytime and the nighttime, you can see that the nighttime time and range during Ramadan is less in comparison to during the fasting hours and also before and after Ramadan. And this is actually expected because you already know the turbulences that occurs in the blood glucose due to the high glycemic, high fat, and high protein content of the iftar meal. And that's why this was seen by decrease in the time and ranges, specifically in the nighttime, and I mean here by the non-fasting hour during the iftar time. But actually, if you're looking to the time and range before Ramadan, during Ramadan, and even a week after Ramadan, you can see beautifully how the algorithm adapted to the lifestyle changes immediately. And I think just by a glimpse of an eye, you cannot differentiate if this is during, before, or after Ramadan. And again, it's almost the same time and range below and above. So this shows the adaptation of the automated insulin delivery system and algorithm to the lifestyle changes. And another thing is the real world prospective study about the effectiveness of automated insulin delivery system. And now we are comparing different treatment modalities of patients living with type 1 diabetes, either using the automated insulin delivery system, and I mean here the Minimed 780G, Minimed 670G, as well as tandem control IQ system, versus other treatment modality. And here we're talking about open loop pump with the CGM, or pump with the self-monitoring blood glucose, multiple daily injection and the CGM, as well as multiple daily injection and SMBG. And again, we're looking for the median numbers of days that was broken. And you can see beautifully the violet color with only 2 days of break in the fast on those using the automated insulin delivery system. And you can see consecutively between 2.5 days up to 5 days of broken fast days and other modalities, either using MDI or the open loop pumps. And again, if you're looking the automated insulin delivery time and range versus other treatment modalities, either open loop with a CGM or even multiple daily injection with a CGM, again, you can see clearly the more green area, time and range reaching 73% in those using the automated insulin delivery system. And again, we have here attained the double target. So just breaking the fast less than 2 days and maintaining the time and range was highest in the automated insulin delivery system. And again, moving to Saudi Arabia, where we have Professor Salman Wannas. He had a 19 participant with type 1 diabetes. 11 of them fasted during Ramadan. And we were comparing the advanced hyper-closed loop system versus the standard loop system. And we are looking here at, again, at the time and range, where you can see those who are on automated insulin delivery had better time and range. And even we're comparing those who conducted fasting versus non-fasting group, again, comparable time and range with no statistical significance. The same conclusion with no diabetic ketoacidosis, no admission emergency room hospitals, or severe hypoglycemia between the fasting or the non-fasting group. And I'm ending here with a case report of an 11-year-old Saudi boy who had two experiences with two successive Ramadan fasting. One with the predictive low glucose insulin pump, the 640G, and the next year with the automated insulin delivery system, the 780G. And you can see here beautifully, again, higher time and range at the end of Ramadan 2022 versus 2021, 60% versus 75%. And again, if you're comparing the month of Ramadan before Ramadan, again, even Ramadan, he had higher time and range. And I'm emphasizing here, this was not on the expense of time below range and hypoglycemia. Another thing that even the break of the fast was less 50% and while he was on the 780G versus the 640G, and he had only mild hypoglycemia with the automated insulin delivery system. So just rapidly, one case study where we had a 34-year young man with a type 1 diabetes for 9 years, average HbA1c of 6.9 for the past years. You can see that again, he's having the optimal setting with a blood glucose target of 100 milligram per deciliter and an active insulin time of 2 hours. This is the setting before and during Ramadan. Nothing was changed. Again, it's the same as the study that I have explained in detail in the HCL studies. But looking at this, you can see a mild increase hyperglycemia post-iftar and a very mild one at suhoor and a beautiful stable blood glucose values during the fasting hours. You can see again here that high sensor use and patients are kept in the auto mode in 100% of the time, no auto mode exit. And you can see comparing before and during Ramadan with no change even in the insulin to carb ratio, reaching the time and range of 94%. So you can appreciate here how technology have gained much confidence for those patients, helping them to have safe fasting. And from this, we had our first consensus and recommendations with systematic literature review guidelines that you can see and download for free from Diabetes Technology and Therapeutic. And you can scan the code and you can see beautifully. And I will definitely let Professor Mohammed Sufyani go into the recommendations for the advanced hyper closed loop system during the intermittent fasting of Ramadan, what you have to do pre, during, and post Ramadan. And I'm ending here with a small take home message that automated insulin delivery system provides a real time blood sugar monitoring. This enables the proactive insulin adjustment, insulin delivery immediately. This also minimizes the manual adjustment and improve flexibility in the meal timing as well as physical activity during the fasting hours. Moreover, the glycemic outcome have improved the time and range. And the very important that it decreased the variability, and you can see the coefficient of variation is significantly decreased using the automated insulin delivery system, enhanced safety with no diabetic ketoacidosis or hypoglycemia. And you've got already a proactive monitoring where you can see your blood glucose in a timely intervention, reducing the likelihood complication during the fasting and the non-fasting hours. But I have to emphasize here that this is not possible without the education. You have to put a structured education to your patient. You have to personalize the support. You have to personalize the collaborative approach where you're looking to have a great team of healthcare providers to ensure the optimal management of those patients. So you can see different benefits of the AID system with the not only the safety of hypo and hyper, but the greater flexibility, and the important thing is the presence of peace of mind. And you can see successful cases studies where you have seen the improved quality of life in those patients with enhanced safety and control. That's why we have to embrace technology, which is a crucial role in enabling safe and healthy Ramadan fasting for those people living with type 1 diabetes. So not only the systematic literature review, the clinical trial, but even the real world experiences have showed the superiority of advanced hyper closed loop system over the conventional open loop or the multiple daily injection. By this, I will leave the mic to Professor Mohammed Sufyani to discuss with you the 12 recommendations of the usage of advanced hyper closed loop system during Ramadan fasting. For this, I would like to thank you all for your attendance, as well as the DAR International Alliance organizing group and the ICON group for their support. And I'm ready for any questions and answer during the panel discussion. Thank you so much.